Okay, so I just finished watching The Daleks in colour, which, yeah, oh dear, oh dear. So, this is not just a simple, oh, let's colorise a story, for the 60th and that. This is actually part of Russell T Davis's plan to basically try and encourage kids to watch classic Doctor Who. And the reason being that he thinks that kids will not watch classic Doctor Who, particularly, 60s Who, is because it's in black and white. And because of the pacing and that, and the stories being longer and everything. So this story is really weird because it's trying desperately to try and be a new Who story. But the thing is that the footage on screen is fighting against what they're trying to do the whole time, because the colorization is one thing, but the editing and the music are another thing. So this story for the colorization, which by the way I'm going to be spoiling the Daleks, so if you haven't seen the Daleks before, there you go, there's your spoilers. But anyway, so yeah, basically the music in this has a new music score, and it's very new series like. It's a very new series type of music, which, doesn't really fit to begin with. It sticks out like a sore thumb, but the main problem I have with it is it is playing far too loud, to the point where it drowns out the dialogue, where you can't actually hear what the characters are bloody saying. And this was a problem, not just with this, but also with a lot of the new series, where the music is just played far too high. This was particularly noticeable during the Whittaker era, where the music bloody drowned out all the dialogue, where it ceased to become background music because that was all you could bloody hear. And in this story, particularly in the Daleks, it is really bad, because the problem is that they don't have the dialogue as an isolated score, and that they don't have the dialogue isolated. So basically what they have to do is it's a very fine balance of picking between, because the Daleks does have particular music, but the thing is, with adding this music in a lot of places, it removes the creep factor to it, the emptiness of the Dalek city when Barbara first goes in the corridors. It loses that because it's got, music going boom, 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 boom. It loses that sort of edge to it because you've got the music indicating, oh, something's happening. And as I said, it drowns out the dialogue and that as well. But, that's one thing. We've also got some new effects on there. Not many. Mainly the Dalek's gun. The TARDIS, for the most part, is now... For some reason, they decided to use a CGI model. I don't know why, but they did. And, yeah. But, talking about the editing, my god, this thing is really badly edited. It is really, really badly edited. To the point where, if you've never seen the Daleks, which, the thing is, though, that is part of the, marketing for this, is that, oh, it's a way, for... with Russell T Davis saying, oh, it's a way for kids to experience it for the first time. They're going to be confused as hell when watching this story, because of, one, the way it's edited, and two, the amount of cuts that they've made to it, means that the story is now a lot more difficult to follow. And I wish I could bloody show clips, but unfortunately it hasn't, at the time of recording this, it hasn't yet appeared on iPlayer yet. And also, I don't want this video to get a strike from the BBC, because, well, the BBC will most likely just take the video down if you show any clips at all, and that from this, but I'll talk about more of that in a second. So, basically, you notice early on there's a lot of jump cuts in places, bits that you'll notice and that. I mean, sometimes the editing around it isn't too bad, but there's a lot of cutting from character to character to character. Like, there's no breathing room anywhere in this story. It just shoots through. The thing is, it's not like with Doctor Who and the Daleks, which I'm going to compare it to, because Doctor Who and the Daleks, yes, goes by very quickly, but it doesn't feel like, it's cutting loads or it's rushing to the end as quickly as it possibly can. It still, knows when to slow down in places. This story does not. This story does not. And my God, the second half of this story, they literally, they tried to cram far too much into that runtime. God knows why they wanted it 75 minutes. Like, if it was 90 minutes, I'm not sure, if it was 90 minutes, that extra 15 minutes, it might have fixed a lot of these issues. But 75? Nah. The Daleks, by the way, if you didn't know, the Daleks is basically a 3-hour story, or just about. So, yeah, trying to cut that down to essentially a third of its length? Yeah, no. The least affected episode is episode 1. That has the least amount of cutting compared to it, and it's the least noticeable out of them because, bits like the food machine and them initially landing and that, you can, like, that kind of stuff, okay, you can accept cuts. But there are other bits that are cut that just, like, I started noticing it, for example, in this version, there is no scene of them disconnecting the camera lens, basically breaking the camera lens so that the Daleks can no longer spy on them. Which means that in this version, there's no scene of them doing that, so, the Daleks know their plan the whole time, so surely they would have taken countermeasures, because that's the whole point, is they're spying on them the whole time. But yeah, it just literally cuts to a scene where Ian, already has the camera lens and is breaking off a piece to use to jam the door with obviously no explanation on where it came from. Obviously, and I know what you're going to say, if you're already a fan of that and you've already seen the story and that, you just kind of fill in the blanks, which is true. But I'm talking about as its own thing, it doesn't really make sense anymore. It doesn't really make sense anymore, because, like, where you got it and why the Daleks did this, it creates more plot holes because of it. Also, other stuff, for example, is just rushed over and skipped. For example, they don't show Susan writing out the message at all. That scene is just dubbed over, because in this story, if you didn't know, David Graham returns to voice the Daleks alongside Nicholas Briggs, where basically there are bits of dialogue that are changed slightly or are just, redone completely to basically fill in any gaps in the story that they completely skip over. For example, the message to the Thals, that is something that is just, explained by the Daleks rather than being shown now. Okay. But then there's just other stuff in the editing, which I'll get onto in a sec. There's other stuff in the editing, like, for example, they keep jumping to flashbacks when characters are talking about something in the story. Like, I don't know why, just like, remember when this character was killed? Like, fucking 10 seconds ago? Like, why did we need a flashback to this? Oh, remember when Ian's legs were shot? Less than 5 minutes ago? Like, yeah, it's just really weird that when we keep getting these constant flashbacks to things earlier on, even though literally some of them happened less than 5 minutes ago. It just feels a bit odd. But then we get to the most bloody confusing bit, which is the escape sequence, and it's really hard to describe it. You'll just have to watch it and see, but, like, they almost play like, the music that's playing, for one, is far too loud. It actually is drowning out the alarm quite a bit, and the dialogue. They're playing this, like, kind of heist, movie, like, type music during it, But the way it's edited, it's all over the bloody place. Where it's bloody confusing what has happened, because part of it is like, okay, this is what the characters are planning, here's a flash forward to this, oh, now suddenly we're in where this is, like, it's bloody confusing talking about it, never mind, watching it. Like, if you didn't know what was meant to be happening there, then yeah, it's a bit odd. Also, we never see Susan, the Doctor, and Barbara actually leave the city. We never actually see them leave the city, and where Ian decides to go back and warn the Thals, it basically just cuts that sequence to basically Ian running to warn the Thals, and then later it then cuts to them already with the Thals and that, and not showing them getting out. Okay. And also the Ranger scopes this time appear to show pictures and audio. It shows full video and audio. Which, yeah, in the original, the Ranger scopes can only show them pictures. Now, you could argue the fact that, it's just showing them video, not audio, but even so, I mean, it's not really distinguished, but the fact that it appears that the Daleks can see and hear them, the Daleks will be able to see and hear their plans and see their movements. But previously, they were only able to get static pictures where they had to kind of decipher and guess what was happening. But with this, they get crystal clear video and presumably audio and that as well, so they should know exactly what's happening, where they're going to attack, and where the groups are going off to. So, yeah, that creates another error there. Oh, and then, the problem is, it just doesn't stop at a breakneck pace. Like, there's no character real development in this version, because there can't be. There's no time. Like, for example, Aladun doesn't have a character development where, he goes from initially, distrusting the Daleks initially, and then when their leader is killed, he's reluctant to fight, but then he, comes round to it and realising, you have to fight for survival. Yeah, that's all gone. Essentially, it's only cut down to its very, very bare bones. And the stuff with the two Thals that are brothers who go through the caves and that whole kind of arc is just completely gone. And you don't feel, because of how quick it is, you don't feel, the journey on how, long and tiring it is. Like, the Daleks, as a 7-parter, may drag itself out a lot, but one of its advantages is that you feel the characters going through this really long and tough journey. Whereas in this, you really don't, unfortunately. It's just far too quick, and towards the end it's getting way too quick, where it's just snap, 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 cut, cut, cut. Like, there are cuts in here. It feels like they can't linger on a scene for more than a couple of seconds. Like, for example, during dialogue, they'll cut mid-sentence to another scene, and then cut back to that other dialogue that was happening. There's just so many cuts in that you can't bloody process it the way it is. It is just on some of the cuts and that as well, it looks really jarring and that in places. So yeah, I thought I was going to talk more about the colorization and that in this, but no, the bloody music, and particularly, the editing and the music really drag this down quite a bit. And unfortunately, because this uses new bits of dialogue and the way it's edited and that together, you can't, simply take the audio from the original version and kind of Frankenstein it together. You probably could. You definitely could if you had enough time in the world, but God, that would be a bloody pain in the backside. I mean, there's the slimmer of hope that maybe on the Blu-ray release there may be an option to maybe play it with some more of the original audio, or at least the original, music, so you can actually hear what the bloody dialogue is half the time, because it is way too high, that music. So, yeah. As for the colorization, I thought it was pretty decent. Some of the colours are wrong. This picture you're looking at here is actually a colorized publicity photo, but yeah, there are a lot of places, like for example, the Dalek dome lights are not orange. The actual dome lights from the Daleks, they weren't orange. Also, the city itself, when you initially see it and that, and the inside, it's based more... The colours of it are not based on the actual Dalek city from the Daleks, because in that story, all the corridors are basically either white or featureless or silver. You know, basically are just silver and white, which is how it was also described in the script. But this is based on more of the Peter Cushing Dalek films, where they're all various different colours and that. I don't mind that too much, to be honest. I don't really mind that. Though the city itself, when they cut to that model shot a few times, there are times where the colour of the city actually changes. Like, initially, you know, it's all different, you know, colours and that, sort of reds and golds and stuff like that, and bits of blue. But then later on, it seems like it's all completely green for bits of it. It's just like, I thought it was a little bit odd. Okay? Now, this story, as I said, it was nice, though, to hear David Graham return as the Daleks, and also we get Nick Briggs and that, you know, filling in a couple of places. For example, the Daleks no longer call themselves, no longer say our Dalek poor fathers retired into the city. Now they say Khaleds in that line. And also now they do just go with the neutron bomb initially, rather than trying to change the planet's atmosphere. So, yeah, because if you don't know, in the original version of the Daleks, they try that, but the neutron bomb would take too long to create. However, in Doctor Who and the Daleks, they just decide to go with just the neutron bomb, and that, you know, they're able to do it in no time at all. So, yeah, that one follows that logic, and I couldn't understand why, because then they're able to cut quite a bit out of that plot. But, yeah, the colorization itself is fine. The only thing I'd say about it, and it's just a problem with colorization in general when you're colorizing something that was already in black and white, and it's the same problem the Power of the Daleks animated actually had when they went off and did the colorization, is that it loses a lot of depth. And mainly darker scenes, you notice it as the most. For example, when the Daleks first basically question the Doctor, it is a lot brighter. It is much brighter than the original is. The original is a lot darker. And also stuff in the caves and that later on, you notice is a lot brighter and that as well. So, yeah. It is something that calmed me out, and I don't think they brightened it up too much. So, you know, it was the nice enough middle ground. So, this was also, I think this was listed of 1 of 4, and at the end of this, we get sort of a teaser trailer for, you know, possible colorizations to come in the future. And this was previously teased, for example, if you watched the Whoniverse trailer that came out earlier today, there was a clip from Dark's Invasion of Earth and also Tomb of the Cybermen in there. And notice how this says 1 of 4, so possibly, so it's more, and Russell T Davies says he wants to do as many as he can in colour. I reckon out of the ones to come next, like, if they do a Patrick Troughton one, obviously, Tomb of the Cybermen is the most obvious one to do. So, yeah, whether that'll need to be edited, like that one, if that one gets the 75-minute treatment, that one should fare a lot better, because obviously there'll be less to cut out, but still, we'll say they might even do the whole thing, or cut it down to, I think these should be, like, for example, this should have been 90 minutes, though. This should have been 90 minutes, and cool it with the bloody editing on these, like, you know, this was bloody difficult to watch for me, because it was just literally just like, ooh, pretty colours, oh, look at this, 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 you know, basically, it was basically just like, you know, dangling keys in front of a baby, essentially, just like, oh, don't let them get bored for a second. Don't make sure you always cook something every 5 minutes and that, or less. Make sure everything is cooked. It feels like the mentality of this is basically that, number one, children will not watch anything in black and white, and number two, they have zero attention span at all to watch Doctor Who. That seems to be the mentality behind this, because that is what this was partly designed for. That is what a lot of the changes and the editing and that is why Russell T Davies made those decisions with this. Okay? Now, talking from a fan myself, I first saw the Daleks, the original version of the Daleks, back in 2007? Or was it either 2007 or 2008? It was recently after the DVD came out, so whatever year that was. So I would have been 8 or 9 at the time. And yeah, and one of my first Doctor Who stories, like classic series stories I ever saw, technically my joint second, because I got it along with the Five Doctors, that was the Dalek Invasion of Earth. And, I had no problem watching the black and white. I still enjoyed it. So, yeah, I'm not saying altering would be like that, but the thing is, like, if children are willing to give classic Doctor Who a chance, they will most likely eventually move over to the black and white stuff. It's not like they would avoid it forever. And that, so, yeah. Bit of a weird scenario, seeing that children will not watch them, because if they're willing to watch classic Doctor Who, more than likely they'll be also then willing to go watch the black and white stuff. But this is just a mess, the Daleks in colour. It is just a complete mess, unfortunately. Because, unlike, with Peter Cushing's film and that was, made to be that length, this was not, and this is cut all over the place. Basically, it's trying to be a 2023 Doctor Who episode. Unfortunately, it's stuck with 1963 footage. So, yeah, /64. So, yeah. That's basically my biggest, gripe with it, that the editing and the music. But anyway, that's my thoughts on watching. Oh, I'm out of breath now.